The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the self-important chatter of 1,000 different species, each convinced they were the smartest beings in the room. Ambassador Glorbnax of the Zentorian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and cleared his throat with the enthusiasm of someone about to deliver what he believed was pure genius. Esteemed colleagues, Glorbnax began, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension that only comes from having 3 doctoral degrees and 0 common sense. We gather today to address the human problem. A ripple of agreement swept through the chamber. The Vraxian delegate nodded so vigorously his tentacles nearly tied themselves in knots. The crystalline Corthans chimed in harmony, their geological patience finally worn thin by humanity's antics. These humans, continued Glorbnax, consulting his holographic notes with theatrical precision, have been members of our galactic community for precisely 17 standard cycles. In that time, they have started 43 diplomatic incidents, invented 12 new curse words that our universal translators refuse to process, and somehow managed to turn a peaceful trade negotiation into what they call a dance-off. The chamber erupted in scandalized gasps. The Maluvian representative, who resembled a cross between a jellyfish and a filing cabinet, wobbled in distress. The horror, the absolute chaos. Indeed, Glorbnax nodded sagely. Their most recent transgression involved broadcasting something called reality television across 7 star systems. The psychological damage to our youth cannot be understated. Young Zentorians are now demanding to participate in something called the Bachelor, Intergalactic Edition. The horror was palpable. Several delegates had to be revived with emergency oxygen. Therefore, Glorbnax announced, raising his voice with the confidence of someone who had never met a human face-to-face, I propose we implement Communication Protocol 7. We silence Earth entirely. No incoming signals. No outgoing transmissions. A complete communication blackout until they learn to behave like civilized beings. The vote was swift and decisive. 4,012 species voted in favor. 0 opposed. The abstentions came only from species that were literally able to press buttons due to their anatomy. As the holographic voting tally displayed the results, Glorbnax smiled with the satisfaction of a parent who had just sent a particularly troublesome child to their room. Excellent. Earth shall be silenced within the next solar cycle. Perhaps a few months of quiet reflection will teach them the value of proper galactic etiquette. The Vraxian delegate chuckled, a sound like wet tentacles slapping against metal. They will probably thank us for the peace and quiet. These humans seem to enjoy their solitude. Precisely, agreed the Corthan representative, their crystalline structure resonating with smug satisfaction. They are simple creatures. Like training a pet, really. A little discipline, and they will be model galactic citizens. If any of these august beings had bothered to study human history, they might have noticed a pattern. Humans, when ignored, didn't quietly contemplate their mistakes. They didn't sit in corners and think about what they had done wrong. They definitely didn't thank anyone for the peace and quiet. But the Galactic Council had spent so much time congratulating themselves on their wisdom that they had forgotten one crucial detail about humans. They really hated being told what to do. Captain Jake Morrison was hauling a cargo of synthetic coffee substitutes from Mars to Europa when the universe went quiet. One moment he was listening to classic rock and complaining about the navigation computer's attitude problem. In the next moment, every communication channel went dead. Not static dead. Not equipment failure dead. Silent as the grave dead. Well, that's not good, Jake muttered, tapping his communication panel with the kind of gentle violence that fixed most spaceship problems. Nothing. He tried the emergency channels. Still nothing. He even tried the frequency reserved for really desperate bathroom emergencies. Complete silence. Jake had been running cargo through the solar system for 15 years. He knew the difference between broken equipment and something seriously wrong. This was definitely something seriously wrong. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez was having the worst day of her career. As the planet's leading xenolinguist and head of the Interspecies Communication Division, she had spent the last 6 hours watching every single alien communication channel go dark. Status report, demanded Director Reynolds, bursting into Elena's lab like a man whose coffee hadn't kicked in yet. It's not equipment failure, Elena said, not looking up from her banks of monitors. Every alien signal just stopped at exactly 1437 GMT. All of them. Simultaneously. Solar flare? Nope. Our equipment is fine. Alien signals are being blocked at the source. Elena finally turned around, and Reynolds noticed she had that particular expression people get when they realize the universe is playing a very unfunny joke on them. Sir, this isn't accidental. Someone cut us off deliberately. Within hours, the panic was spreading faster than gossip at a high school reunion. Government officials were having emergency meetings. Scientists were running around with clipboards, looking important and worried. The media was having a field day with headlines like Earth ghosted by aliens and universal silent treatment. What did we do now? But the real reaction was happening in places like Jake Morrison's cargo hauler, where a gruff space trucker was staring at his dead communication panel and feeling something that every human recognized. The particular type of anger that comes from being deliberately ignored. "Oh, you want to play games?" Jake said to the empty space around his ship. "Fine. Let's play games." He wasn't alone in this sentiment. Across Earth, humans were discovering that they had been cut off from galactic civilization, and they were responding with the same mature, measured reaction that had made them famous throughout the galaxy. They were getting really pissed off. In Houston, NASA Administrator Patricia Chen slammed her hand on the conference table hard enough to make coffee cups jump. "They did what now?" "Best we can figure. I am. Someone's jamming all alien communications to and from Earth," reported her chief communications officer. "It's sophisticated. Way beyond our current technology." "So they're giving us the silent treatment," Patricia said slowly, in the tone of voice that made subordinates start updating their resumes. "Like we're children who need to be taught a lesson." "That appears to be the situation, yes, I am." Patricia Chen had not become NASA administrator by accepting situations quietly. She had earned her position through a combination of brilliant engineering, ruthless determination, and a complete inability to back down from a challenge. "Get me General McMahon," she said, "and wake up everyone in the Deep Space Division. If these aliens think they can ground us like teenagers, they're about to learn why that's a really bad idea." The funny thing about humans is that they had been telling alien species for years that they didn't like being pushed around. But apparently the message hadn't gotten through. It was about to. The emergency meeting took place in a bunker beneath the Nevada desert, but because humans had learned long ago that when you're planning something that might upset galactic civilization, you do it somewhere with really thick walls. General Patricia Iron Pat McMahon walked into the briefing room like she was personally offended by the existence of chairs. She had earned her nickname during the Mars colony crisis, when she had told 3 different alien ambassadors exactly where they could stick their helpful suggestions about human expansion policies. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced without preamble, "we have a problem. The aliens think they can put us in timeout." The assembled group included representatives from NASA, the European Space Agency, the Chinese National Space Administration, and several other organizations whose existence was technically classified. They were the kind of people who solved impossible problems before breakfast and invented new laws of physics after lunch. "What's our current deep space capability?" McMahon asked. "Sure." Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the Deep Space Division consulted her tablet. "Limited. Most of our long-range vessels are designed for communication relay with alien technology. Without their cooperation, we're basically limited to chemical propulsion and prayer." "What about the Prometheus project?" The room went quiet. The Prometheus project was the kind of operation that existed in the gap between experimental and probably illegal under several treaties. Engineer Tommy Wrench Rodriguez cleared his throat. Tommy had earned his nickname by fixing a Mars terraforming station with nothing but duct tape, determination, and what he claimed was creative interpretation of physics. If something could be built, rebuilt, or jury-rigged into working, Tommy was your guy. "The Prometheus is, well, she's not exactly ready for prime time," Tommy said carefully. "She's a deep space exploration vessel designed for long-range reconnaissance. Alien tech-free propulsion, full stealth capabilities, and a communication array that could punch through a black hole's event horizon. But, McMahon prompted. But she's also completely untested, potentially unstable, and there's a 30% chance the stealth system will either make us invisible forever or turn us inside out. Possibly both. McMahon smiled, the kind of smile that made enemy generals request transfers to safer assignments. Tommy, in your professional opinion, what are the chances the Prometheus can get a small team to the Galactic Council station without being detected? Tommy thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. I'd say 50-50. Either we get there, or we become a very interesting physics experiment. I like those odds, McMahon declared. Dr. Vasquez, I assume you want to be on this mission? Elena nodded. She had been studying alien languages and cultures for her entire career. The chance to actually visit the Galactic Council station was worth any risk. Someone needs to figure out exactly what they're planning, and why they think this was a good idea. Captain Morrison, McMahon continued, you're our best deep space pilot, and you've got more experience with alien technology than anyone else in this room. You in? Jake Morrison had been sitting quietly in the corner, still wearing his cargo hauler jumpsuit and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. But when McMahon asked the question, he looked up with the expression of a man who had found his purpose in life. They just made this personal, he said. I'm not just in. I'm driving. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. If the aliens wanted to treat humans like children, humanity would show them exactly what happened when you underestimated a species that had turned stubbornness into an art form. They weren't going to beg for their communications back. They weren't going to send diplomatic protests or formal complaints. They were going to fix the problem themselves, and if the aliens didn't like it, they could file a complaint with someone who cared. 3 weeks later, the Prometheus drifted silently through space toward the Galactic Council station, running darker than a politician's promise, and twice as dangerous. The stealth system was working perfectly, which actually worried Tommy Rodriguez more than if it had been exploding occasionally. Systems check, Captain Morrison whispered, even though there was no one around to hear them. Stealth holding steady, Tommy reported. Life support nominal. Coffee supply critical but manageable. Dr. Elena Vasquez was hunched over her xenolinguistic equipment, listening to the alien communications chatter from the station. I'm picking up routine traffic. Doesn't sound like they're expecting company. The Galactic Council station was impressive, Jake had to admit. It looked like someone had taken a city-sized crystal and taught it to glow in 17 different colors. Ships from hundreds of species docked at various ports, their designs ranging from elegant to bizarre to what were they thinking. There, Elena pointed at her screens, Docking Bay 77. It's designated for maintenance vessels, small, automated, and they're not scanning for life signs. The Prometheus slipped into the docking bay like a whisper wearing sneakers. Within minutes, the team was aboard the station, dressed in maintenance coveralls that Tommy had somehow acquired and definitely not stolen from the station's own supply depot. Remember, Elena said as they moved through the corridors, we're here to find the communication suppression device and figure out what they're really planning. Try to look like you belong. Jake Morrison looked around at the alien architecture and the dozens of species walking past them. Elena, I'm a 6-foot-tall human wearing coveralls that say maintenance in a language I can't pronounce. I don't think blending in was ever really an option. They found the communications center after 20 minutes of following Tommy's informed guesses about alien engineering standards. The suppression device was exactly what Elena had expected, a massive crystalline structure humming with the kind of energy that made humans' teeth itch. But it was the conversation they overheard that really got their attention. The human silence has been quite pleasant, Administrator Vrex was saying to his colleague. No more of their chaotic transmissions cluttering up the communication networks. Indeed, replied Counselor Zafix, though I do wonder if we should check on them. Make sure they haven't accidentally destroyed themselves with their primitive technology. Both aliens laughed, the sound like wind chimes having an argument. Oh, they're far too simple for that, Vrex continued. Humans are emotional creatures. They probably spent the first few days being upset, then moved on to acceptance. By now, they're likely grateful for the peace and quiet. Elena had to put her hand over Jake's mouth to keep him from saying something that would have blown their cover and possibly started an intergalactic incident. The communication block is designed to be educational, Zifix explained. A few months of isolation, and they'll be begging to follow proper galactic protocols. It's really quite humane when you think about it. Like training a pet, Vrex agreed. Firm but fair. They'll thank us eventually. Tommy was already studying the suppression device, his engineer's brain cataloging every component and connection. He leaned over to Elena and whispered, I can reverse this thing, but I can do something better. Better how? Elena whispered back. Tommy's grin was the kind that usually preceded explosions or groundbreaking scientific discoveries. Sometimes both. I can turn it inside out. Instead of blocking Earth's communications, we can amplify them. Send our message to every alien communication device in the galaxy. Jake Morrison looked at the device, then at Tommy, then at the two aliens still chatting about how they were going to train humanity like badly behaved puppies. Do it, he said quietly. It's time these folks learned what happens when you pick a fight with humans. Elena was already composing the message in her head. It was going to be educational, all right, just not in the way the aliens expected. Tommy Rodriguez had always believed that the difference between science and magic was mostly a matter of paperwork. As he worked on the alien communication suppression device, he was pretty sure he was performing both. Okay, he muttered to himself, rerouting crystalline pathways and recalibrating energy flows. Instead of blocking signals from Earth, we're going to boost them. Instead of a whisper that no one can hear, we're going to give them a shout that the entire galaxy can't ignore. Elena finished writing humanity's response and uploaded it to the system. Jake Morrison stood guard, trying to look like a maintenance worker while secretly hoping he'd get the chance to explain to some aliens exactly what humans thought about being trained. Ready? Tommy asked, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Do it, Elena said. Tommy flipped the switch, and the galaxy changed forever. Every alien communication device suddenly crackled to life with the same signal. Personal communicators, ship-to-ship radios, planetary broadcast networks, even the emergency frequencies reserved for galactic catastrophes. All of them were now broadcasting the same message from Earth. It started with Elena's voice, calm and professional, speaking in perfect galactic standard. Greetings, fellow citizens of the galaxy. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, representing the human species of Earth. Across the galaxy, aliens stopped what they were doing and listened. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Globnax choked on his ceremonial tea. We understand, Elena's voice continued, that you have decided to implement what you call Communication Protocol 7 against our planet. You have cut us off from galactic civilization because you believe we need to be trained like pets. The message paused, and John. Anyone familiar with human psychology might have recognized the sound of someone taking a very deep breath before saying something they had been waiting their entire life to say. We have a response to this decision. It comes in 3 parts. Part 1, we are not your pets. We are not your children. We are not your students. And you are not our teachers. We are a sovereign species with our own values, our own culture, and our own way of doing things. If you don't like it, that's what we humans call your problem. In the Galactic Council chamber, delegates were frantically trying to shut off their communication devices. Nothing worked. The signal was coming from everywhere and nowhere, like the voice of the galaxy itself. Part 2, your communication blockade was not educational. It was not humane. It was not even effective. What it was the galactic equivalent of a child throwing a tantrum because they couldn't control something they didn't understand. Jake Morrison had contributed this part of the message, and Elena had been impressed by his creative use of diplomatic language to say you people are idiots in 17 different ways. Part 3, you wanted to teach us a lesson about proper galactic behavior. Consider this lesson reciprocated. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Terran Cultural Exchange Incident, though humans preferred to call it the day we introduced aliens to the concept of payback. Every alien communication device began broadcasting Earth's greatest hits, not their music, though that came later. First came the highlights of human history, narrated with the kind of cheerful enthusiasm usually reserved for nature documentaries. Here we see humans in their natural habitat. The narrator explained as footage of World War II played across alien screens. Notice how they respond to aggression not with submission, but with increasingly creative forms of retaliation. The broadcast continued with humanity's greatest comebacks, most spectacular failures, most inspiring triumphs, and most embarrassing moments. It was a complete cultural overview, presented with the kind of brutal honesty that made aliens realize they had seriously misjudged the species they were trying to train. The finale was a compilation of human reactions to being told what to do, featuring everything from the Boston Tea Party to teenagers explaining why curfews were stupid. It was educational, informative, and absolutely terrifying to any species that valued order and predictability. The broadcast ended with Elena's voice again, now warm with the kind of satisfaction that comes from a job well done. We hope this exchange has been educational for everyone involved. Earth is now resuming normal communications with all species who treat us as equals. Anyone who prefers the old arrangement is welcome to continue ignoring us, and we will happily return the favor. Thank you for your attention. And remember, humans don't do quiet reflection. We do creative problem solving, and we're very good at it. The signal cut out, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The aftermath of humanity's cultural exchange was swift and spectacular. Within 6 hours of the broadcast, Ambassador Glornax received 47 formal complaints, 12 demands for his resignation, and 1 challenge to ritual combat from a species that had apparently enjoyed the human documentary on historical warfare. In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions were being called faster than anyone could attend them. The Vraxian delegate was having what appeared to be a nervous breakdown, his tentacles tied in knots that would have impressed a Boy Scout. The crystalline Corthans were resonating at frequencies that shattered nearby glassware and several small planets' tourism industries. How did they do this? Glornax demanded, waving his arms at the bank of communication equipment that had finally stopped broadcasting human cultural programming. Our suppression field was foolproof. Chief Engineer Mexiplicake, who resembled a cross between a filing cabinet and a nervous breakdown, consulted his instruments with the enthusiasm of someone who had just discovered their job was about to become much more complicated. They reversed the polarity of the suppression matrix, he reported miserably. Instead of blocking their communications, we amplified them across the entire galactic network. Every device, every frequency, every emergency channel. And the stealth approach to our station? Unknown. Security shows no record of any human vessels in the area. Mexiplicake paused, then added with the tone of someone delivering very bad news, sir. I think they might be better at this than we are. Meanwhile, aboard the Prometheus, Captain Morrison was piloting them away from the Galactic Council station with the satisfied expression of someone who had just pulled off the perfect prank. Tommy Rodriguez was humming while he monitored their systems, and Dr. Elena Vasquez was fielding incoming communications from dozens of alien species who suddenly wanted to establish proper diplomatic relations with Earth. Incoming transmission from the Andromedan Trade Federation, Elena reported. They're requesting immediate diplomatic talks and offering exclusive trading rights. The Celestial Republic wants to establish a cultural exchange program, she continued. And the Outer Rim Coalition is asking if we'd be interested in a mutual defense pact. Jake Morrison chuckled. Funny how being ignored makes you popular when you prove you can't be ignored. The real victory, though, was back on Earth, where the communication blackout had been replaced by more alien contact requests than the diplomatic corps could handle. Humanity had gone from being the galaxy's problem child to being the species everyone wanted as an ally, because nobody wanted to be on the wrong side of a group that turned punishment into opportunity. Ambassador Glornax, meanwhile, was discovering that his colleagues' support had evaporated faster than water on a sun-facing asteroid. The Maluvian representative, who now resembled a very nervous jellyfish, was already drafting a formal apology to Earth. The Zentorian High Command had quietly suggested that perhaps Glorbnax might enjoy a career change to something less diplomatic and more distant. "The humans have requested a formal meeting," announced the Council Secretary, a being whose species was so diplomatically neutral they had evolved to look like furniture. "They want to establish proper protocols for interspecies communication." "And what are their terms?" Glorbnax asked, though he suspected he wasn't going to like the answer. "They want equal representation in the Council, full communications access, and a formal apology for what they term the Galactic Silent Treatment Incident." Glorbnax considered his options. He could refuse and risk another demonstration of human creativity. He could accept and admit that his brilliant plan had backfired spectacularly. Or he could try to negotiate, though humans had already demonstrated they weren't particularly interested in compromise. "And if we refuse?" The Secretary consulted his notes. "They've politely indicated that they have several more cultural exchange programs prepared, including something called Earth's Greatest Military Blunders and What We Learned from Them in Human Relationship Drama, a comprehensive guide to emotional chaos." The Council voted unanimously to accept humanity's terms. 6 months later, Earth had a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, trade agreements with 47 species, and a reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable and dangerous ally. Humans had learned they were very good at galactic politics, mainly because they treated it like a combination of chess, poker, and professional wrestling. And somewhere in deep space, Captain Jake Morrison was hauling cargo again, but now his communication array could reach every corner of the galaxy. As he piloted his ship through the asteroid belt, he smiled at the thought that humanity had taught the galaxy's greatest civilizations the most important lesson of all. Never try to silence someone who's really good at making noise. The universe was a much more interesting place when humans were part of the conversation.